What is going on, guys? It's your boy here again, Dean, and it's tier list time. That's right, but it's not just any tier list today. It's something I've been wanting to do a lot, which is a little bit of Shadowverse story content, because I love the digital game, and I just want to share that love with you guys. And so, if you guys haven't played the Shadowverse story, click away now, because it is there's going to be a lot of spoilers in this video, but we're going to be ranking every single character that appears in the story, even a lot of really meme ones. We're going to be putting them on this tier list. We're going to be talking about them. So let's get into it. We're going to start off with the main cast. Okay, so first up we have is Erica. Erica is a solid F tier character. She's awful. One of the worst characters in the story, if you had to ask me. She starts off and she is like the princess's right-hand man. She goes around. She's like supposed to be the bodyguard, but she also kills people in the name of like the army that the princess that will not be named, because she doesn't actually have a name. They didn't really care about names back then. Her personality is she's very abrasive and untrusting, and because she kills people as a job, she is quick to just attack people. Everyone in the main cast is an enemy at multiple times in the story, and it's very upsetting when you're like pretty deep in the story. You're on like the 4th different iteration of this. The story's been going on for 3 years, and Erica's still just like turning on her allies because of something. Like somebody says like something slightly wrong, and she's like, yeah, that's it, we're done, we're gonna throw hands. And she doesn't really resolve that. She resolves it a bit by the end, but she was kind of just an awful person for way too long to ever be redeemed in my eyes, and so she goes in F tier. Next up is Isabel. Isabel also goes in F tier because holy shit, I hate Kyle. Shut up about Kyle. Isabel is a mage in her world, and she has a boyfriend named Kyle. Kyle dies at the beginning, and she just never stops talking about Kyle. You get at the end of the arc, it feels like she resolved the thing about Kyle, because Kyle's ghost says, Isabel, you know, maybe you should forgive people, I'm gone. And then she immediately, the second arc happens, and the entire arc about her, most of her dialogue revolves around Kyle and overcoming the grief. And then the third thing comes up, and then Kyle is still the point of her character. And so you're just like, wow, it's been, once again, like 3 years of story, and I'm still hearing about Kyle, and I didn't care about Kyle. Kyle was in the story for about 5 minutes. He was a center point, but like he was not like a real character, so we didn't get to see Kyle. He just kind of died, and then the story was over. But you had to hear about Kyle for 3 years. You had to hear about him. He was certified most important character in the story. Next up is Luna. Luna is a solid A tier. She's just a cute girl by the end. The beginning, she's a little fucked up. She was like this little rich noble girl with some magic powers, and one day her parents are attacked by a burglar. The burglar kills both of her parents, and she uses her magic to revive them as like spooky, scary skeletons. Those are the skeletons behind her and all of her art. And then, you know, because she's got skeletons around her and her parents have died, she's like a little insane, and people are afraid of her. And then she just starts going, yeah, I can just kill people because like who cares? And but eventually Nicola goes, hey kid, you kind of fucked up, maybe you should be a little bit better. And he really treats her as like a person. So then you get a little bit of character growth from her, where she starts to just become a kid, and then you see like more of her being just like more of a kid with Ania. So she actually had some pretty stable and linear character growth that I really did enjoy, and then at the end she was just a cute girl. So Luna, good character, love her, A tier. Next up is Eris. Eris goes in D tier. They didn't know what they were doing with this character. So Eris is like the Pope, I think. She had clones, but clones disappeared, so I don't know if those were shadow clones. I don't know if there were multiple Erises. I don't really know what was going on. I don't know. I actually don't. I could not tell you if she's even like human. I don't know if it's like the Shadow game and she's Shadow the Hedgehog with the clones or not. But yeah, she summoned Nexus. She summoned Nexus, and because she saw like a poor person once, she's like, what if nobody was poor and everyone was dead? And then the main cast said, Eris, it's a little fucked up. And she said, yeah, you're right. And then she just joined them, and then she doesn't really do anything. It feels like she just kind of like monitors the situation. I can't think of any like major conflict that's resolved by her. She's just kind of there. when the hands get thrown. So D tier. She doesn't really bring anything to the table. Next up is Orisa, and she's the face of Shadowverse. And you know what? She goes S tier on the tier list. I swear to God, nobody else in the story is functioning. Everyone else is non-functioning, except for Orisa. She is the glue that holds everyone together. She was the... What was it? They were like forest rangers or something. The forest protectors. Her and Lazaria. And then when Eris summons Nexus, these like shades attack and they steal Lazaria to become like a vessel. Like think of like Fate, like where the Grail enters Ilia or something, or Ilia becomes the Grail. It's like that, where Lazaria becomes Nexus. And Erissa's like, I gotta go help get my friend back. And then she's the only person that's willing to like work with people. And she keeps a very positive attitude, and she just kind of like keeps going at it regardless of what comes up. So, you know, positive Genki girl, fantastic character, great voice actor. She calls major Meowskers major fluffy butt, 10 out of 10. Next up is Ewan. Ewan is sick. The Shadowverse story is pretty big, right? It's got a lot of things going on. They go between worlds. There are these world-ending beings called Keepers. And Ewan is from a different world than the main cast, where he is fighting a different Keeper than the one that they're fighting, because they're fighting Nexus, who was just summoned to their world. And his entire thing is he's like, I'll help you kill your big bad if, like, you can help me get to my big bad, because I need to, like, lay some smackdown on her. So he just comes around. He's a badass. 10 out of 10 character. Great VA. Next up is Urias. Urias is best explained as Yujiro Hanma. I'm going to put him in A tier. Just think of like what Yujiro does in Baki, or just any one of those cocky characters, like a Vegeta type character. He's there, but he usually doesn't resolve the fight. He could resolve the fight. He often has the capability to, but like, why would he? He just kind of goes around. He attacks the good guys. He attacks the bad guys. He doesn't care. His entire thing is he's a vampire. It's like backstory. He's a vampire, but he's the last vampire because he killed all the other vampires. And then, like 100 years ago, he fought Erica's princess's dad, whose name is Balthazar. And then Balthazar was very tenacious. And Urias thought, whoa, this guy's fighting for his life. That's pretty cool. I like that he's fighting. And then Urias just kind of let Balthazar beat him, and he went to sleep for 100 years. And then he came back up, and he's like, oh, Nexus sounds strong. She's a god. I'll go fight her. So that's kind of like where his place in the story is. He's chaotic neutral. He just kind of walks around, and then he doesn't really resolve anything, but he's sick. So 10 out of 10. Next up is Rowan. I think Rowan's a C tier. Rowan is the captain of the platoon that Kyle was from. And they were on a hunt to kill a dragon. And then they kill the dragon, but the dragon possesses Rowan or curses him or something. And now Rowan turns into the dragon, but he can't control himself. So he goes and kills Kyle. He kills a couple other people, I think, but they don't matter. Only Kyle matters in the story. And once that happens, he starts to freak out because he doesn't, like, you know, he doesn't want to kill his family. He doesn't want to kill, like, other people around him. So he tries to keep his power in check. And then eventually he gets called a bitch enough times. And then he learns to control his powers. And then he becomes the dragon. And then they write him out of the story. So I feel like he had an okay arc. But a lot of it was just him being like, I cannot unleash the dragon within. So kind of C tier. And that's the main cast. So now it's time to get into the other characters. Like I said, there's going to be a long video, guys. It's going to be a long one. Next up is Ania. Ania is a solid A tier. She is a robot girl. In this arc, there's Mono, Tetra, Ania. And they're Belphomet's creations. And they're like sentient robots that are just trying to fight for their freedom, but she's closer to Luna, and that she's like basically just a kid and not really, like, she's not really spearheading any resistance. She's just kind of a kid, and then it's like her and Luna, and it's like helping Luna like learn to become a kid again. So Pretty fun character overall. I think solid A tier. Next up is Asher. Asher was pretty... He's kind of like Eris in that he doesn't himself do much. He's just in the story to die. He's like a young kid from a village that finds this girl and then says, I'm gonna help you find your home or something. And then he dies because he's not actually human. He's actually a monster or something. And then you find out that the girl that was traveling with him was actually just like batshit insane. But like he himself was pretty damn generic. He was like definitely an insanely generic character, which I think he was supposed to be. So yeah, D tier, not very interesting, but like he served his purpose in the story. He wasn't bad. Next character is Castell. Oh, Castell was pretty D tier. If she wasn't cute, she would be F tier, but she's kind of cute. She's atrocious. I actually don't even know, like maybe she should be F tier, but there's like definitely worse things than Castell. She is Verdelia's sister from the forest. She's this shy little girl, and Verdelia is like, she's kind of like Lazaria, where I don't think she got a keeper's power, but she got like the power of like the forest god, the god of a world, not like a dimensional god. And then Castell randomly gets the power of one of the big dimensional keeper gods and is secretly insane and evil or something. And it was, I don't actually remember like fully what was going on there. I just know that they're randomly like, Castell, were you brainwashed? She's like, no, I was just kind of insane the entire time. It was pretty mid-reveal because like nothing... Once the end of the Academy arc was very good, but at the very end it was a little whack, so I feel like Castell was just kind of like a D tier villain. Wasn't much build up to her being the villain, and then it was a little whack when she was. Next up is Amaryllis. I put Amaryllis in like A or S. I think I liked her with Lilith a lot. Amaryllis is this like girl that was cursed. She was put in a book, and she couldn't escape the book unless somebody defeated the dragon. It's supposed to be like Rapunzel. It was like Rapunzel was basically the story. Somebody had to come defeat the dragon and then rescue her, and until they could, she was just kind of there. And then once she got out, she was just like this. She was a pretty funny character. You got to actually play the story to appreciate her dialogue with Lilith. Solid S tier for me, very enjoyable. Whenever she was on the screen, I was pretty happy. Let's go up next is Annie Sage. Annie Sage is solid D tier for me. Annie Sage is Frankenstein. She's in the Empyrean Inn, which is the part of the story where people go to purgatory for a while until they can like sort out all of the shit that happened to them in the real life. But while they're in the purgatory in the Empyrean Inn, they lose their memories, and like she was just Frankenstein, and then, you know, people treated her like a monster, so she wanted to forget that. But then at the end, she's like, okay, I want to face myself. But overall, I just felt like she was like she's like a pretty quiet character, so she's not very interesting on that front as well. Pretty D tier for me. Next up is Bunny. I put Bunny in B tier. I think Bunny's like a B tier character. Part of Bunny and Baron, a group of outlaws in Revale, which is like a cowboy area of the story. She's definitely like the weaker of the two, I think. She's like the hyperactive girl that's like the trigger happy. I kind of like the more like cool, silent type. Like Baron, I think Baron's A tier. Almost S tier, actually. Yeah, the two of them, like I said, group of bandits, but Baron is definitely set out. He's a little more focused on what he's trying to do. Bunny's just along for the ride. Baron works for Not Not, but he's also trying to kill Not Not. He doesn't like that she exists. He kind of just, you know, he wants like nobody in control. He's like the anarchist of the world. Pretty cool character, pretty sick VA. A lot of the Revale characters are going to be placed highly just off of their voice acting alone, and because Revale was a great part of the story. Next up is Alucard. This guy's like pretty weak. He's like B tier for me. Alucard is a vampire that in the Velsar arc remembers everything, because the Velsar arc is that the time keeps repeating because the god of the world had set out this like challenge for everyone to resolve, and that at a certain point the world like ends and then everything repeats, and he is the one person that consistently remembers like every single iteration of this world. And so he just keeps trying to get everyone to work together to overcome those trials. But he's like a little quiet. He's just a vampire. And I felt like everything in Velsar was like really weak. It was like weak. It was probably like one of the weakest parts of the story for me. Probably because of the looping nature. It was like you see a character and then they like fail to do their thing and then they die. And then you see the character, they fail to do their thing and they die. And you know, that when it's like that instead of like a much longer story, you kind of say, wow, this character's a little bit worse. Next up is Dejeerling or something. She's a cat girl. She's kind of hot. She doesn't do anything. C tier. She's kind of hot. That's the big thing. Cat girl. We like those. I literally can't tell you what she does. I don't even know what faction she's in. Next up is Cornelius. This guy was a C-tier villain. He is the Academy. He's like the Dean of the Academy. He's like Dumbledore for Verdilia's arc. And he's a necromancer. I don't even think he's like explicitly evil. He kind of just is like willing to die even. He just wants... Okay. He wants like the strong to come out of war, so he is like a warmonger, but he's not like a blatantly evil character. He's just kind of like a fucked up necromancer. He does like keep his wife. He has multiple wives, and he does keep. I think he has multiple wives. That was like part of it. But he like if they die, he keeps them. Or I forget if he was killing them. He might have been killing them to like keep them as puppets or as necromancers. Yeah. I feel like he was like C tier though. He wasn't he was like a big bad, but he wasn't like very prevalent. And I feel like there's definitely like more insane people in the story, so I feel like he was kind of C tier, maybe like B tier, but C for me. But no, you know who's not C tier? Oh, no, fuck. Hold up. That was truly the most tragic misclicks of all time. But after, like, 10 fucking minutes, I have finally resolved my issue. We are back, and we are going to get back into it. Okay, so, next up is Balthazar. This is the guy that Urias fought forever ago. Pretty D-tier. His entire thing was just being a motive for Urias. And also, at the beginning of the game, story kind of sucked. Because I don't think they really cared. I think Shadowverse wasn't supposed to last a long time, I've read before, where they thought the game would be over in 2 years, and so they definitely didn't make the most compelling story at the beginning. And it tells when you play through the story mode. The beginning gets a little rough, and then as you continue on, it gets a lot better. And so yeah, he's kind of D tier. He's just there to give Urias a backstory. Next up is Drock. This guy is in the Velsar arc, so the time loop thing, and he is this teenager that's trying to fill his dad's shoes, where I think his dad died. He was like the leader of the clan of dragon people, and he doesn't want to be chained down by responsibilities, typical teenager behavior. Pretty C tier, I think he is. He's not like, do you like teen angst? That's the character. He ends up becoming better, right? It's like a mature, like a coming of age type thing. But I always find the starts of those are a little rough, and since you had to watch it on loop a bunch until he eventually, got his shit together, it was pretty rough for me, so I'm gonna put him in C tier. Next up is Baphomet. Baphomet's sick. Baphomet is the robot overlord of like the robot girls, so Ania, Mono, Tetra. He created all of them and then like basically killed all of the humans with his like robot army, and now his robots are like conspiring against him, but he is the cocky badass. He has an insane voice actor, and he just basically wants to be God. He's like, hey Nerva, I'll work with you, but then he tries to just basically kill Nerva, and he's insane. He's great. He's a fun time. Absolutely great villain. the right level of crazy. Baleon is he A tier or B tier? So he's voiced by whoever voices Garen, and that's like +1. But his entire thing is he's the ruler of the forest or something, and I don't really remember enough. I never remember thinking, whoa, Baleon's on the screen, this is the good part of the story. I always went, wow, Baleon's got a cool voice actor. So I'm going to put him in B tier. I think he's a pretty like vanilla character, and he's also like a lion man, which is like -1 point for being lion man. He is cool, but he's a lion man. But +1 point for being voiced by Garen. So that's pretty badass. B tier. Itsurugi. This guy is pretty uninteresting. I think he's a C tier pro tag. He is a wolf pup at the inn, and he wanted to... What was the problem? Was he like an abused dog or something? I forget. He grew up at the end. Was he like that? I don't think he was that old at the beginning. I think he was just like abandoned or something, or people didn't like him because he was an animal person, or what was it? What was his past? I actually forget this part. He's in the inn. He works for... Oh god, what's his name? Takatsumi. In like cleanup duty for the inn, and then he finds out that Takatsumi's like actually evil and like keeping him, and then he's like, I want to know what happened to me, and like regardless of what the memories hold, and then he swears vengeance against Takatsumi, and he kind of like is set up enough to be like with the pro tags, but then he's not really with them. I think he shows up once. They run into him once. They hinted at Yuan being in the story, but then I don't think they really did anything with it. Was like my real problem with it. He felt like he was supposed to do more, and then I feel like they didn't really use him after that. So he goes in the C tier for me. D tier, Ilganu. This is like a really boring character. She talks very slowly and is very unsure of herself because she is a ghost. She's a wraith, I guess, not a ghost. It's like, I think there's like a physical body there, but like it's an immortal body. It's kind of like a ghoul. And her and her sister died, and so she's like this just living grudge of a person, but she doesn't really remember much. But she ends up siding with the good guys because she's not actually evil. It's just like she's like a spirit, a sentient spirit. She was very uninteresting whenever she was on the screen, so I put her at D tier. No, you know who's not uninteresting? Aishilindrig, S tier villain. This guy is one of the 3 titans in Reveal, the cowboy arc. You have 3 titans that are like these gods that govern the land. And then near the end, they retcon it to be some inheritance bullshit. I didn't like that part. But, you know, I'm going to go off of what it felt like the story was before they wrote the last part of the story that was pretty shoot in. You know, the pre-Dragon Ball. You know, before Dragon Ball GT, right? Yeah, his power is he is the god of, what is it, prosperity, and so he owns like everything in the world, and he takes from you what you take from him. So he has like a really cool boss fight where, because basically he ends up goading the people into killing him, and then he takes the Arissa's body because she lands the final blow, and then the world turns into Velsar, where he is like alive for 1,000 years as Arissa. And the world falls into ruin, where he like rules over it until eventually like everything comes to an end, and then the world resets back to Reveal. Okay, it's a lot of shit that goes down. Hard to explain, but in his boss fight, because he has like the power to take things from you that you took from him, he's got like 40 health, and every time you hit him, if you didn't like one-shot him, he would deal that much to you and heal right back up. So he's like really cool thematic boss fight. Really great voice actor. Sick clothes. 10 out of 10. Cool card too. A train comes onto the board when you play him, because he owns the railroads. 10 out of 10. Elaine seemed pretty uninteresting. She traveled with Asher, and then she started screaming. And I gotta say, her VA kind of killed it. She's a pretty insane character. You know, she's not like an S tier. You're not always excited when she's on screen, but like in retrospect, she was absolutely insane, and it was truly something to be there when she was like freaking the fuck out most of her dialogue. And then afterwards, she finds out that, hey, maybe she was the messed up one. Or no. I think she says that she's gonna vow vengeance for Asher or something. She's still like infatuated with this guy, but she says like the reason that he died was because of Nerva or something. And then she says that I'm gonna go fight for other worlds. And then she's not in Worlds Beyond. I don't know. I hope she comes up in the story again. It would really be a shame if they don't use her again. This is Eleanor, the leader of the Magus Covenant in the Italy arc. So the Guild Wars, I promise we'll be done explaining arcs soon. The Guild Wars arc was, there's like 5 guilds, and Eleanor's the leader of one of them. And basically the goal of the 5 guilds is everyone kind of wants to control the world, but if any 2 fight each other, they know that they'll be destroyed. And so they just kind of try to coexist. So that's really all I'm going to give you guys about the Guild Wars. Eleanor is the leader of the mages. She's, the runecraft leader. And she just does not care about people. Just like, think of like the most autistic person you've ever met. She just only cares about her experiments, and then she's kind of like makes like a homunculus. She just drops it out in the wild, and whatever the hell happens to people, she doesn't really care. But she's not like a villain. She's like, okay, it's just like a lot of work, to clean up. She's, one of those people. Overall, a lot of fun dialogue with her, and she's supposed to help Isabel overcome Kyle. So, but despite, having to deal with Isabel, she herself was not really dragged down because she was a fun character the entire time. Next up is Florice. Florice is the god of Reveal. She made the Titans. So, but like she was like a fortune teller or something, and then she had the time loop because she knew that Nexus was coming, and she said the only way that this world can survive Nexus is if our people have their shit together, and basically if they can't kill the Titans, then they're not ready to really save the world. So I'm going to put her in D tier. I don't really know, like she just like didn't have a lot of dialogue, so it's like more of the fact that because she didn't do a whole lot, or it's not that she didn't do a whole lot, but because she didn't have a lot of dialogue, you don't get a lot of screen time with her. She's just like a mystical entity, kind of D tier for me. Hard to like those characters. Well, this guy was the Bulwark. He sounded cool when he talked. He had no actual character development. He was one of Kratos' goons, which I guess you should explain that entire arc for a second real quick. It's the last thing I have, because it's like the Elena arc and the Asher arc. The Asher and Elena arc is there are this group of monster people that are trying to summon Nerva. It's a prelude to the rest of the story. And then there is a faction of people trying to stop Nerva from being summoned because they know that, like, hey, we don't want, like, our world to be destroyed by this thing, and so we're going to try to, like, hunt out these factions of people, get rid of them. And so this guy is with the good guys who are not the people you're following. You're actually following the bad guys, kind of, for most of the story, but you don't know that. It's like really hidden. It's a really great part of the story, by the way. If I ruined it for you, I'm sorry. You should have clicked away probably 35 minutes ago in this video. But he just doesn't have a lot of character development. He's just like the big strong guy that's alongside Kratos. He was kind of sick, and then because it was like a prelude to the rest of the story, he's also playing some old dog shit deck, which I thought was a little funny that they decided to do that instead of... They had a lot of cool parts near the end, so I can't fault them for that. But yeah, he just didn't have enough development to be... But he's kind of cool, so I'm going to put him in B tier. The Great Soot Spider. What the actual fuck was this? This was like the worst actual thing. This is going back to the Empyrean Inn where people lose their memories. This was the... Not the official big bad, but it was like the smokescreen big bad that they tried to use. And it was just like a spider who ate people's memories. There's like a deity within the inn. And it's like barely a character, but it kind of was like a driving force for the plot. And then Itsurugi kills it like the first time he sees it. I forget if Takatsumi was going to kill it or not, but they killed the Great Soot Spider with I don't know. It felt like it just kind of died. Like the first time you see it, it dies. And it just was very underwhelming as a character. And as a big bad, because it's just a spider, dude. It's just a spider. You're gonna tell me a spider's our villain? That's it? Nah. Kagero. This guy's boring as shit. D tier. He is the sheath to a blade. He is like the sword spirit. He's the actual sword. But like the spirit that possesses the sword, like the Japanese folklore type stuff. His loop in the Velsar thing is he just keeps dying because he can't master the killing technique. He can't, like, sheath the sword, because the actual sword just likes to kill people, and it's a separate, like, entity. But he is the sheath, and then he, like, ends up absorbing him. It's kind of like when Piccolo eats that one guy, Kami or whatever. But he's just, like, pretty uninteresting. I was never really excited when he was on screen, and I didn't think he was... I don't remember liking him all that much. Next up is the Furies. They're on here because they had models, and they are not actual characters, so they go in D tier. Well, they're kind of characters. They're Baphomet's creations, basically, of the 3 robots that are sentient. There were an additional 3 that Baphomet turned into these monsters and completely removed all of their will. And he calls them the Furies. And if you ever play Glory Finder, these are those. They're like I don't actually know their names. Tristophene or something. It doesn't really matter. They kind of suck, and they just have like copy-pasted dialogue about like recharging limiters. So they're not even characters. Next up is Lilith. He's part of the Academy arc. Cornelius is his dad, and he's like a cocky guy who wants to overthrow his dad's reign in the school. I think I put him in solid S tier because once you get through his like initial part of like him just being cocky and all that, and you find out he's got like a little more going on, and then he starts interacting with Amaryllis, he becomes like a very enjoyable character once he's on screen. And the Academy arc is because of these two. Fantastic arc. Not just because of them though. Latika. Latika is part of Balion's story, which is the Neteran Great Tree. I just kind of like put Balion here. I didn't really explain that part of the story. That part of the story is basically it's post-apocalyptic by like 1,000 years or something, where like people overused all of the natural resources, but it wasn't a natural resource. It was actually like a god. It was Viridia Magna was like a light bulb, or she was like an oil reserve for the people. And then they used her to like create civilization, and then, you know, they used too much energy, and Viridia Magna went to sleep, and civilization collapsed. Well, Latika is this cat girl who found the ancient Twitch girl VODs and tries to replicate the way they talk. So she sits there watching old Twitch VODs and then says lol, poggers. Well, she doesn't say poggers, but she says lol and pwned and all those things. She's like this really hot cat girl. Good character. Good character. Her entire thing is, yeah, people didn't like her because she had big claws. I think that was about it. And she just kind of hangs out with Eris and tries to fix Eris's problem, whatever Eris's problem is. I think there's like shipping between her and Tetra, and I think Mistalina. I don't actually know if Mistalina was part of that or not. Forget. It's been a while. Major Mouskers, fantastic card. Also part of the Neteran arc. This guy is Valdane's right-hand man, because Valdane and Balion lead 2 separate armies. And somehow this talking cat, this talking Scottish cat, is the second in command. He's completely incompetent, but he's 10 out of 10. Arissa calls him Major Fluffy Butt. Great character. Next up is Linda? Who was this? This bitch was crazy. This was like awful. F tier. The entire part where I said there's the character Kratos, which we haven't gotten to yet. He's like, hey, I got this. Okay, so she starts off with, sorry, I'm brain everywhere. Long video. Asher, starting village, is with Linda, who it turns out Asher is a like meatball monster. It looks like a Monsters Inc. like toy or something is what Asher looks like with the big reveal before he dies. And Linda was somebody that he had kidnapped, but she liked the meatball monster because she was insane, which is the same thing that happened with Elaine. Elaine was also insane and liked the meatball monster, but Lind was like a little more subdued. And Kratos explains everything to Elaine, is like, okay, we can defeat Nexus. I know you kind of like that one meatball, but like maybe we can just like kill Nerva. Sorry, we can kill Nerva. And Elaine's like, you know, I'll help you, Kratos. A little fucked up, but I think that Asher would have not wanted this. Well, Lind is insane, and she just kills Kratos, and then Nerva destroys the world, and everyone dies. But you hadn't seen Lind. The crazy thing is about this woman is you hadn't seen her. Like, I think there was like a 6-month gap between the stories. It felt like, or 3 to 6 months gap. It's hard to remember, but it had been a while. Like you hadn't seen the story progress, and she hasn't been in the story. She was in like the first 2 chapters, and you're on like chapter 30, and suddenly she comes back up again to kill like the main character. Yeah, she kind of sucked. Terrible. Awful. This is Kyle. Kyle goes in a D tier because nobody's as bad as Isabel and Erica. We've talked about Kyle. He doesn't have like any character. He just wants to hang out with the boys. Lazaria. Lazaria is voiced by one of my favorite VAs, so she goes in C tier. She is just there to give Orisa a reason to be. She gets possessed by Nexus, and then Orisa comes back cracked, and Lazaria is like, damn, what am I doing now? Yeah, she doesn't do a whole lot, but she's got a great VA, so she goes in C tier for me. Marlon is Mr. Subway. Did I say I was going to put him in B tier? I'm going to put him in B tier for giving sandwiches to Luna. That's where he goes. He leads one of the guilds in the Guild Wars. So he leads basically what I think is supposed to be the church. He's like the Pope, kind of like Eris. And he ends up Chaozuing himself at the end, but I don't really remember him doing anything except for making sandwiches for Orisa. No, sorry. He makes sandwiches for Luna, and then he feeds rocks to Nicola, because Nicola is an android from the same world as Mono and Tetra, but he's like a prototype. And he ends up at the Guild Wars after running away from Belphomet. And Marlon basically feeds him and keeps him alive. And then also it acts as like a mediator between the rest of the other guilds. But he's pretty uninteresting. I really don't remember much about him outside of that. Miser's sick, S tier. Great character. He's got a cowboy hat. He's got a gun. Great VA. He is the deputy of Reveal, but he doesn't like to draw his gun because one time he shot someone when he started off. And so a lot of his like stuff is like dealing with that PTSD, but also being like an upstanding, you know, member of the law and being everyone's hero. He'll be like, dang, I gotta chase this guy who stole from the store, but then old granny needs to walk across the street. Gotta help her across the street. He's one of those characters. Great guy. Fantastic voice acting. 10 out of 10. Cannot wait for him to come out physical. Mizuchi is part of the Empyrean Inn, and you know, her, and I'm gonna put her and C-Long in D tier. I just don't care about them. Don't care about them. They're the exact same character. Mizuchi and C-Long are Shiro and Archer from Fate. That is how to explain it. If you understand that, you understand these characters. There's really nothing else to be said. This is Lilum. She's the person who put Amaryllis in the book, and I don't really remember what else she did. Her power is she's Lelouch from Code Geass, I think, or something like that. No, she tells you a story, and if you start to think it's true, it becomes real for you. That's what her power was. So she tells Amaryllis that Amaryllis is Rapunzel, and basically Amaryllis gets trapped in a book because that's she basically did that to her. And then forget what her actual like overarching thing was. I just remember she was pretty uninteresting. So C tier for me. Maisha, B tier villain? B tier villain. I'm sorry, Harrison. I'm sorry, Maisha lovers. In the Guild Wars, she's like the second in command of one of the guilds, but turns out she's actually just batshit insane, and she loves Nerva. and she wants the entire planet to die. That's her entire thing. I guess she was like a child soldier from another world, and she destroyed that world in the name of Nerva, and then she came to the Guild Wars. She's going to destroy them, but she went undercover. So for the first half, she's like this, like, oh, shy girl with glasses, and then it turns out she's insane, and she wields the 2 swords and then goes around killing people. Yeah, I guess she's A tier. She can be like A tier, I guess. She definitely was like a competent villain. She went around and systematically killed every single person in Velsar on the retcon part. The Dragon Ball GT arc gave her a little more life. So yeah, I guess the GT arc actually did her favors, while like we had to ignore half of Reveal's story because of it. Next up is Mistalina. Mistalina's cute. She's Baleon's daughter, sister. I actually forget. She has like a healing pawn, so she's immortal, and she's really gay with Erica, I think. I don't remember much else about her. B tier because she's cute. I remember that much. And she has a good voice. Kratos. Kratos is A tier. He was the man with the plan. He knew how to beat Nerva. He just didn't account for this bitch being insane. He got like a crew of people. And even though they had died, he was like, okay, it's unfortunate they died, but we must press on. Like, we have to have this plan. We're going to try to do it. Cool character. Unfortunate that what happened to him. Would have liked to see more of him. Leod. Leod is C tier. I think he's pretty C tier. He's cool. Got a cool design. I'll put him in B tier. Oh, he was around Erica. Everything about Leod had to do with Erica was the problem. I think he's C tier. He's C tier. So it's Guild Wars, which is the second part of the story. Once again, he's one of the factions. He is like the assassin faction called Counter Solari, where it's like a bunch of assassins. I don't even know what they do. Their goal is to kill the Blade Rights, and also they just kill civilians and other people, and he's their leader, and I guess he has like Excalibur or something, and he swore vengeance on them because they killed his family, and then like he's like a very menacing guy, and then I think he died at the end. So, but the problem is his story was bogged down because Erica's an awful character, so he goes in C tier for me. He's kind of cool when you just play the card though. Roly Poly, he goes with Ania. He's like A tier. He's Ania's friend. He goes with Ania, who goes with Luna. And he's just like a robot he's like the chaperone kind of Luna, like, or of Ania. But he's also just like the kind of useless chaperone, like, right? He's just kind of like, oh, like, think of Pascal from Nier, kind of, but actually not at all. Not at all, because Nier is something else. Not. She is the Titan of Force in the world. She basically runs the Outlaws in Reveal. S tier. She's hot as shit. She has the Southern drawl. 10 out of 10. You cannot get better than this character. All of the Titans are going to go in S tier, by the way. Really, that's just she runs the crime scene. Baron reports to her, and she doesn't care if Baron tries to kill her. I think they might also I think they also might have shipped these two a little bit, but then they end up shipping her with someone else. Nexus goes in C tier. She's pretty uninteresting. She's an eldritch god that is going to destroy the world, but I like her voice, so she gets a point for that. She's pretty uninteresting outside of that. She's more of like a thing that you're supposed to defeat more than an actual character. Saito goes in S tier. This is not a Shadowverse character. Wait a sec. I gotta get this on a different screen real quick for you. I don't think you guys... He doesn't have a card, and he doesn't belong in the story. This guy not only doesn't belong in the story, he looks like he's from Resident Evil, but he had the most insane line of dialogue in the entire story. The Empyrean Inn is you go there after you die, right? I'm gonna hide my webcam here. Oh, I'm gonna hide my webcam here. So, in the Empyrean Inn, you go there after you die. So he is like from a literal different universe, and he goes on this rant to Annie Sage about how he had to sell a kidney for, like, I think it's supposed to be rent money or something. It says monthly quota, but obviously that's like rent money. unbelievable character. Dude, when I saw the line about the kidney, I was sold. This guy S tier. That was the funniest line in the entire story. Off of that alone. Mono goes in S tier. Fantastic character. Her interacting with Urias is always a treat. She's a robot that talks in poems. And she has, like, the limiter that if she uses it, she could die. And so Urias thinks that's, like, really cool that, like, you know, she can fight, like, a level that it amuses him. And then she's just kind of, like, trying to defeat Baphomet. But she's the like, romance between her and Urias, 10 out of 10. Great part of the story. Nicola goes in S tier for me. He's really funny when he talks. There's a lot of characters in S tier because there's a lot of characters that are just so good in the story. Every time Nicola talks to Ania, it is the funniest line of dialogue I've ever heard. This part of the Guild Wars really brought it together for me. He is like the homeless Terminator, and Marlon has to feed him rocks, and then he has to feed Luna sandwiches. And then everyone's like, oh, dude, Nicola could, like, destroy us. And he's like, I don't really want any trouble. And then like, he kind of, like, fucks off. Funny character. I really loved all of his interactions. This is this Sekka or is this Sekka? Yeah, this is Sekka. Sekka goes in A tier. She's one of the better characters in... She's actually probably the best character in Velsar. Loved her deck. She's like a fox. She's a nine-tailed fox. And her mom just basically keeps killing her because... I guess the nine-tailed fox works like an amoeba, where it branches off, and then if she, like, eats Sekka... Like, Sekka's, like, one tail of the nine-tailed fox. Until she kills her mom, and then she becomes the nine-tailed fox. But she's just kind of, it's kind of like alongside the Luna, where she's just kind of like, once her shit gets fixed, she's kind of just like a cute girl. Like a cute, like, you know, like a protect type of character. She's pretty funny, like, once she interacts with, like, Alucard and, like, the main crew, like, later on in Velsar's story. Next up is Celine. I thought Celine was, damn, B tier's pretty lonely, but Celine's not B tier. She's, like, A tier. Her and Miser are the ship. I mean, obviously, we got the wedding card because they do officially get hitched at the end. She is an assassin for the church, so, like, you know, Miser can't pull his gun on people, but Celine sure can. She goes around shooting a lot of people in the name of the church. And she's got, like, she, like, lives at an orphanage or something, or she runs the orphanage with, like, a nun, and then the nun is like, Sister Celine, your new orders have come in, you must murder this person in the back alleys, and Celine just goes and does it. Pretty fun character. Sekka's mom, the nine-tailed fox, that's pretty D tier for me. She was there to die to Sekka. She's like a character in the story for the sole purpose of being an obstacle. Taketsumi, this guy's a pretty C tier villain. He might even be D tier. Where's Itsurugi? Yeah, Itsurugi's C tier. Yeah, I think Taketsumi's the same. Taketsumi goes to the Empyrean Inn. Basically, I forget what his past was, but he says, damn, everyone has these fucked up lives. What if they didn't? What if they just didn't remember? And then Itsurugi's like, no, Taketsumi, people should remember. And then Taketsumi gets the power to, like, mind wipe people. And then he gets overthrown and dies. But he was supposed to be, like, Nerva's way to destroy the Empyrean Inn. And he was pretty, like, he had a cool card. And it just, like, near the end, I'll give him B tier. I'll give him B tier. I just didn't feel like, I felt like everything in the Empyrean Inn was so weak that he suffered from it. Oh, this bitch is F tier. Teresa was one of Kratos' goons, but she was... They got a $5 VA for $4 for this bitch. I cannot... I actually have a tab open for her because of this. So first, she has a big witch hat. If that's your thing, cool. She can be hot. But nothing can prepare you for the actual line deliveries from this character. Not from the actual story, but just know the story dialogue is delivered in the same cadence and voice as some of these voice lines.
Not bad, all things considered. Just what are you doing? I too was wrong.
actual worst VA performance ever. And you have to, like, if you are like me and you put this thing on autoplay and you kind of do other stuff while the story plays, miserable. This bitch was talking for like an hour, and I was like, oh my god, I actually have to hit skip on some of her dialogue. It's too painful. And then she got the battle pass leader, which I think is the only battle pass I didn't buy. I didn't want her. Holy shit. Next up is Nerva. Nerva is the, you know, the keeper from Maisha's world and from the inn and some other places. And then she ends up being, like, stronger than Nexus. She's pretty uninteresting. I don't know. She's pretty uninteresting because she's like an eldritch horror. She's supposed to be defeated. And so she talks in all caps, and it's not her motives, because, like, her motives are unclear, right? You don't think of her as, like, you don't think, wow, she's a cool villain. She's just kind of a thing there. Cetus. Cetus goes in C tier. I don't care about Cetus. Cetus is under Maisha, but he really has it down bad for Maisha. And then in the Dragon Ball GT part of the story, because Maisha dies in her world, but then the big bads are revived in the Dragon Ball GT arc, because it quite literally is that the last leg of the story. Basically, once the game was sunset, they did that. And Cetus then has this really fucked up fight against Maisha, where because he's supposed to defeat her with love, he's not there to kill her. He's there to, like, you know, reduce her will to fight. You have to fight in Maisha with 99 health. And I'm playing combo Latika, so I instantly lose on the story battle. And I'm like, wow, that's insane. I cannot believe this fight where I'm supposed to deck out the NPC. But yeah, he's like a soft-spoken giant is basically his thing. The gentle giant. Tsukikage, this guy is F tier as well. His thing is he likes to kill people. He is the evil Kagura. And where did Kagura go? Kagura went in D tier, yeah. This guy talks about killing, and so that's edgy and lame. So we put him in F tier, where he belongs. Next up is my favorite Titan, Vincent. He had the coolest card in digital. He has... oh, 10 out of 10 English VA. 10 out of 10 English VA. He is the Titan of Order. So he, like, basically runs the law enforcement of Revale. And his power is he can, like... he used it to, like, make his arms swords or something weird. I thought his power was to, like, basically be Lelouch. He tells you something, you gotta do it. Because he tells people to stop, and then they stop. And then he tells them to, like, die, and they die. Pretty cool. Everyone in Revale is cool. All of the Titans are sick. So, yeah, he goes up there, too. Next up is Verdilia. She infiltrates the Academy arc, the one with Cornelius and Lilith, and all of those people. I think she's like a solid A tier. Nah, S. S tier is a little inflated because they make so many good characters in the story. Can't be hating on any of them. She infiltrates the Academy because... why did she infiltrate the Academy again? I actually could not tell you. I remember that she was from the forest with Castell, and that she went to the Academy after stealing the forest god that, like, lived within the forest that they were going to try to give to Castell. And I forget what she was trying to do, but she ends up teaching Lilith, helping Amaryllis, and then when war breaks out, she... does she even fight the headmaster? She reports to him. Oh my god, what was that part of the story? Maybe it was A tier, because I can't remember what her motives were. A tier because I have dementia, but that's okay. This is the burglar that kills Luna's parents. This guy is probably more prevalent in the story than some of these other people. He goes in D tier because he just keeps appearing. There's a part of the story where, like, they're put in, imagine Gurren Lagann, the dream sequence. But Luna's dream sequence is the burglar keeps killing her parents. No, wait, the burglar doesn't keep killing her parents? She keeps killing the burglar as he breaks into the house. That's what it is. He keeps breaking into the house, and so there's like 5 chapters in a row where this burglar is on screen. He's like, ah, and then you just kill him. Actually an unreal thing that they did. It's like the endless eight of storytelling. Tetra's an F tier. Holy shit. There's like a couple characters that have to do with being sad about somebody dying, but like for an unbelievable amount of time, and she goes there with Isabel, where a lot of her dialogue is so she's leading the robot faction, right? We've talked about Iolon before. But she's telling everyone else that they have like backups of other people, because like one of the robots, J2, has recently died, and the other robots are like, oh dude, J2 was great, man. Tetra, can we bring back J2? And she's like, oh yeah, we got the backup data, we just need to like upload it into something or something. We need some time. And then when like she starts being pressed on it, she starts freaking out because she doesn't actually have the backup data. There is no bringing this robot back. And so then, you know, Isabel had been freaking out about Kyle for 3 chapters. So then they both try to close their arcs together. The problem is that Isabel is... I've been dealing with Isabel for too long, and now Tetra is tied to Isabel, and that brings her back down to F tier together. Weiss is solid D tier for me. Unfulfilling villain. You think he's going to be the mastermind in this Academy arc because he's like the shady guy. He's got like a little something going on. And, you know, he leaves you uneasy because he seems evil. And then he kidnaps Castell or something. I think did he kill students or something? I don't remember if he killed students. Even if he did, I don't think they mattered. They weren't named students, so you don't really care. I don't care. So that's what matters. But yeah, he kidnaps Castell, you're told. And then Castell comes out and is like, Verdelia's like, Weiss, what did you do to her? And then Weiss goes, oh no, this girl is just insane, Verdelia. You don't even know. I didn't do anything to her. She was Joker all along. And then I think he died. I don't remember what actually happened to Weiss, but he just felt like he was like kind of unfulfilling during the story. Zessel Wenchi. This guy goes in F tier for me. I hate these characters that like to kill and just laugh about killing. Next to Tsukikage, they're the same type of character. Zessel Wenchi is like a homunculus made by Aishilindrig, and he's like an undying killing machine, and that's all he does. He just likes it. So I think that's a little edgy, a little bad. Next up is Valdane. I'm gonna put Valdane in next to Baleon. I'm gonna put him in B tier for me. He is like, Baleon's the light of the forest. Valdane is the curse of the forest. Everything he touches withers and rots. That's the type of character he is. He was like cursed at birth to kill anything he touches, and kind of like Urias, where he's not actively killing people. Or I don't feel like he's actively destroying things because he's got like Meowskers with him and stuff. It's just like he's like the misunderstood guy, but he's still, at the end of the day, does want like Natera to be safe. Just a little misunderstood, but maybe he could go up to A tier. But B tier's looking a little anemic, so I wanted to put one more person in there. And I know Viridian Magna's not going in B tier. She's probably going in C tier. God of Natera, fuel reserves. She comes up when Baphomet appears. I think Baphomet... she gives like power to Erica and Arissa to basically protect Natera. And then I think she like kind of goes back to sleep or dies or something. Like she's not in the story after like Baphomet taps into her power. So I think it's just because she doesn't do a whole lot. She's just kind of like one of those god characters you're supposed to care about. She goes in D tier with all the other uninterested characters that aren't like actively hurting the story. Like everything in F tier was like horrendous to deal with. My story experience was ruined when they were on the screen. Everything in D tier, my eyes would glaze over a little when they were on the story. So yeah, that's it. Long ass video. Talked a lot about the story. This is the official list. Let me know what you guys agree with. Let me know who your favorite character is in the story. And let me know if you want more story-based content. And if you're excited for Worlds Beyond and who you hope comes back. And until next time, this is your boy Dean signing out.